The next one actually comes from, we got a question from Dave. So it's regarding Saquon Barkley with a
Patreon. From the Patreon.
Yeah, from the Patreon.
Hey, you join the Patreon, you get your question answered on here.
Yes. So Dave, muchas gracias for joining the Patreon. So with a high ankle sprain confirmed, how do we value Saquon going forward? So is he buy low? So as we don't expect him before week 6-ish, or, with this being the same ankle as last time, do we stay away?
This is a good question. And I think that there is some nuance to it because it is his second go around. That is something to consider. On one hand, he knows what to expect, and we know what to expect from Saquon Barkley. On the other hand, it's been a few years. Maybe it's not necessarily the shining example you want to use, but he was able to come back from this high ankle sprain at some point in 2019, and he didn't look terrible, right? When Saquon Barkley came back from that high ankle in 2019, he still was able to put up numbers that were, they did okay. They weren't necessarily the best in the world. I'm looking at 14.5 PPR points, 9.7, 30, 43 PPR points, 20, right? Those are all from 13 to 17, week 13, 17. So he can still perform. A guy like Saquon Barkley, same thing. If I'm 2-0 and feeling good about my squad, and you're looking at some of the 0-2 teams and they're desperate, and maybe an 0-2 squad has Saquon Barkley on their team, I am making an offer for Saquon Barkley, something like maybe a Jerome Ford for Saquon Barkley, right? Maybe a Kyron Williams for Saquon Barkley, right? You could make the argument you want to keep those guys anyway, but if you really went 0 RB or you really went wide receiver heavy, I do think that Saquon is a guy that you could anchor and turn your team into an anchor RB team and still get to keep all the additional wide receivers and tight ends that you were able to stockpile. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm talking myself into buying Saquon Barkley. Don't expect him to be 100% by the time he gets back, but give him an additional week or two. So the third week back, definitely from the high ankle sprain. Generally speaking, guys are able to perform.
Yeah, and on that backfield, I mean, Matt Breida, Gary Brightwell, the rookie Eric Gray. If it's an extended period of time, I really think it's going to be a very muddy backfield, as I wrote in Yahoo Fantasy. And honestly, you know what? I want to grab a flyer on Eric Gray because I think he might be the most talented of the three, and might be someone who kind of emerges similar to like Isaiah Pacheco did last year. So Dave, muchas gracias for your question. Muchas gracias por tu pregunta. Appreciate it. Patreon, get your questions in. So this next one, I am very interested in because I have Aaron Jones all over the place. And, we saw him grab his hamstring. He's back to limited practice this week. So how much is that a good sign? Could he still be trending toward an out?
So he could, in theory, still trend towards sitting out, but we don't necessarily expect that, right? Because the average since 2018, and this is in the season-long playbook that's available in the Patreon, since 2018, running backs with a hamstring strain, they've missed about 1.2 games. So it is possible, right, that he misses another game. The median missed games is 1, right? So that's the mid mark. So we would assume he's probably going to he's probably going to be able to come back, especially since he came back in practice. What you need to know for Aaron Jones is that the weekly recurrence rate, so the first week back from this injury, these guys tend to have a recurrence 24% of the time. That's something to consider. The other thing you want to really notice is that the fantasy points, they do reach 100% of their seasonal average in fantasy points, but the median is lower. So what that tells you is that they still have a decent floor, but that ceiling isn't quite there yet. So Aaron Jones, I could be wrong. I could eat my words. Understand that this is a median estimation. This is an approximate thing. You can expect median value. And here's actually what I wrote in the draft guide itself. I said that the high weekly recurrence rate coupled with, quote, fine week winner rate and significant drop off in median routes and median receiving yards makes running backs coming off a hamstring strain moderate to highly volatile. So again, referring back to some running backs, if you're sitting pretty with Kyron Williams and Jerome Ford, you probably don't have to start Aaron Jones if you don't want to, right? If you're sitting pretty with Rashad White, James Cook, those guys in a Jerome Ford or something like that, you probably don't have to start Aaron Jones. But if you're in another spot where you're 0-2 and you know that you've got Aaron Jones, like, you're throwing him out there. That's really my consensus.
Yeah, I've got a one where Roshan Johnson is my second running back, and I'm going to put Aaron Jones, even in a tough matchup against the New Orleans defense, which has been very, very good up till now. So that's something to keep an eye on. So the next one, another running back, Derrick Henry coming up with a toe. I mean, we've talked about how painful these are for them to play through, and him being a bigger guy. How much of a concern is that with him having been a DMP?
It's not a big concern because they did add rest on the back of the toe today on the injury report officially. So they are just resting him, right? Counting his mileage. Obviously, Tajay Spears has been much more involved. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this one. It's not nothing. I'll say that about the toe. It is something to monitor. You probably want to have Tajay Spears rostered, especially if you're a Henry owner. But if you're not a Henry owner, that is your lottery ticket. Go get Tajay Spears on your roster right now. He's, Derrick Henry's 29, if not 30 years old. I don't remember. He's 29 or 30. He's got injuries, right? Not just mileage, quote unquote mileage. He's got injury mileage already on those feet and those ankles. We already see that he's sharing a lot of the workload. Last year, he had, I think it was a significant, I don't want to quote a number because I don't remember. He had significantly more passing work last year, and yet he still finished significantly 24% below his PPR mark from 2021 in 2022. So that's to say he had a lot more passing work and he still didn't meet his 2021 points per game value. So Derrick Henry has been high risk. I said I won't spend a lot of time on it, and then I spent a lot of time on it. So that's it. We can move on to the next guy.
Hey, you already talked about Tajay Spears, so we can. So I don't need to add anything more to that.